Hi, everyone. This is Kathy King with Leah Virsik. We are two artists from Mercury 20 Gallery, which is an artist-run gallery that's been in Oakland, California since 2006. And today I'm going to interview Leah Virsik. And she has a show right now at Mercury 20 Gallery. And it's going on through September 5th. And we're going to find out more about Leah and the show. So, hi, Leah.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, you're so welcome. So, tell me. I always ask this question first. Tell me about yourself. Like, where were you born, and just a little about yourself and how you kind of came to become an artist. Did you know you were going to be an artist from a tiny girl, tiny child, or did you come towards it in life through your experience?
I'm not sure that I knew. I knew that I was interested in art as a young child, and as my mom talks about me being alone in my room playing with papers, and that was really easy for me to do. And I think just liking being with materials, like that was a fun thing.
It's so much. All artists, like my mother said that too. She would just give me a magazine and I would just tear it up and play with it, and I would rather do that,
Yes.
Yeah. It's a little indicative artist thing. People, if your child is doing that, they may someday become an artist.
So true. I remember.
Where are you from?
Oh, okay, so I'm in Oakland now, but I grew up in San Jose. Mm-hmm. And then we moved to Pleasanton when I was so my senior year in high school. And then I moved to Oakland after college. Mm-hmm. So born in California.
And then where'd you go to college?
I went to, so it was back then, it was Cal State East Bay. No, I'm sorry. That's what it is now. Cal State Hayward.
Right.
And I studied marketing and studio art. And I actually my mom was going back to school at the same time, and she was studying art as well. So we were going to school a little bit together.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Maybe.
It was fun, but then my parents got divorced during that time, and she quit doing art and went to school for occupational therapy.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah.
Helpful. So you went to Cal State Hayward, and then you were a graphic designer, correct? Like you were a graphic designer.
So so after college, actually kind of during college, I met someone who I worked with on class projects, and he did graphic design, and I was like, I want to do what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so after school, I tried to figure out how to like educate myself in other ways. Like I didn't want to ever graduate. My dad's like, you have to, move on. And so I went to Laney, I took a class, and then I went to graphic, or like UC Berkeley for their graphic design extension program, or UC Berkeley Extension. And then I worked for the newspaper. I worked for what was ultimately the Oakland Tribune. It was run by someone else, but I learned a lot on the job. So I did a lot of advertising production work.
So did I.
Yeah.
we share that. We both, and so did Hannah Hawk. Do you use a knife, right? A paste-up knife? Oh no, you probably were at the time of the computer, right?
Right. Yeah. I did learn actually a little bit at Laney about wax, and
wax.
But I wasn't very good at that.
Ancient technology. Yeah. So, and then later on, you went to grad school.
I did. It took me like 20 years almost to go back. And I wanted to go back all that time. And I'm so grateful that I did go back, and I went when I went back to, it was kind of like something about like, if I were on my deathbed, if I didn't do it, I would have regretted it. So it was.
So when did you graduate?
In 2016. So, and I went to San Francisco State.
Right. This is great.
Yeah.
All right. So, so you have this background in design. You're an excellent designer. And I'm sure that's a big part of the work you make. And then, so let's kind of get into your whole body of work. Like you work in various materials, and you make sculpture, and you make installation, and you do collage. Tell us about all your media and what you make.
I started with paper, and I started doing collage. I did some painting. I feel like in a way now what I work with, so I work with clothing that I cut up and reassemble into various sculpture and installation. And I feel like in a way it's a form of painting,
Yeah.
a form of collage too, where I'm taking material apart and putting it back together in a different way. I'm trying to think. I feel like grad school was really about focusing in on material or textiles, and especially clothing. And I think there's something about that kind of tearing it apart, this kind of analytical nature that I have. I'm interested in the kind of what's inside and how it's made, or how, what decisions were made.
So in deconstructing it, you show how it's made, and you kind of focusing on the structure of it just by unstructuring it.
I like that. Yeah. And it's that, I love that word structure too. I'm very interested in the structure and kind of like how to maybe like framing things, how maybe trying to structure my life in a way too, but
but you want to unstructure too. I mean, there's that back and forth between wanting the peace and harmony and order of structure, and then you want the freshness, spontaneity, and disorder of pleasure, or so the two things are always kind of going back and forth. And you do great, you construct and deconstruct all the time in your work, right?
Yeah, it's true.
What do found materials mean to you? I know most of your materials are found. What did that mean to you?
So I have a story that I was thinking about when I was a kid, and I was like in elementary school, and I had a good friend, and I was walking with her, and there was a shiny object on the ground, and I picked it up, and she was like, "Don't pick up stuff on the ground."
Right.
and there was so much shame in that, but I think it's like that was the beginning, or like an early memory of these found materials, of what is interesting, what is left, what someone doesn't want, and also that like I'm trying to think of the word for what she was saying to me, like she was judging that material.
Right.
And
so you were being a little bit transgressive, even though it was your curiosity that drew it to you to it. It was transgressive socially just to pick up a piece of garbage and touch it even.
It was. And
yeah, I do it. I mean, I use found materials too, and I'm still scared to pick it up. Still, I feel it, when I do it, although I do it anyway. But it is, I feel that, yeah. That, your mom saying, "Don't touch that."
There's something about this. I've called myself like an advocate for the scrap. That like this thing that's unwanted. It's like, no, it has value, and it's worth it. And I feel like that's.
Oh yeah, it expands to the whole social setting. It's just like these little pieces of unwanted scraps are analogous to us as unwanted, unneeded by capitalism or society, or just, avoided or disliked, or, just discarded, and so many people, and old people are discarded by our society, and certain people, yeah. So there's a metaphor
For sure.
metaphorical relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, so that's kind of that's the kind of the conceptual part of working with a textile. So you're sitting there with a really nice textile next to you, made out of found materials, that is so beautiful and an example of what you do. So tell us just a little bit about that piece that's next to you there.
You know, this piece I made at the end of 2019, kind of the beginning, very beginning of 2020, is called 2020 Bound.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about kind of the not knowing what was going to happen in 2020. It's kind of,
I know.
it's really kind of interesting. I really wanted to take these like little pieces of, these are scraps, and kind of like bind them together. It's actually a square, or kind of square like, and it's all, I love the texture, the way it's kind of falling apart. I feel like I wrote something better about it.
Well, it has structure and it has non-structure, you know. I mean, it's the pieces of denim are tattered. They're, you know, kind of torn and ripped. They're coming apart. They're unweaving, you know, they're unraveling, and yet you're putting a structure on them and putting them back into a structure. So there's that tension between the two. And then, you know, you're designing, you're using all the beautiful blues and, you know, all the texture, visual texture and everything to make a really beautiful, you know, you're highlighting the beauty of the scrap.
Thank you. Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you think that? Think of it.
How do I think of that? No, definitely. I mean, there is this beauty in this material, this thread, you know, that is kind of, I've cut it. So there's this complicity in me. I'm breaking the material, breaking the fiber down, but also like wanting to show, you know, that cut, or that, the result of that, something that it's falling apart in that process. There is beauty in that.
Yeah. And there's pain in it too, like the cut, you know, there's the cut.
Yeah.
So there's pain and beauty together, which always makes the most interesting art, because everybody feels that, I think. And it's just a beautiful combination of affects, you know, of feelings. And I think a lot of people relate to that. So just, will you talk a little bit about, concept and process in your work? Like, you know, you have other work, you know, how do you do research, and how do you pop out your concepts and then, you know, bring them into a realization through your process?
I mean, often the process just starts with the material and this kind of this physical experience of being with the material, and visually, you know, what is it that I like about it? Conceptually, that I feel like it's harder, but I think it does come. I'm thinking a lot about like the history of cotton and the history of indigo. You know, this material that is the result of slave labor and the pain in that. And I think that has made it a difficult material for me to work with. I think because it's uncomfortable, but I think that discomfort, it's like, I want to say something about that. Like, I want to acknowledge, you know, the history of this material. And I do find more out about that through research. And how can I actually bring that history out of the material and talk about it? And it's transforming me. As I'm transforming it as well. I mean, I think that there's something in there too. And it's like, how can I use the history of the material to educate myself, to
and kind of talk about the transformation of society. So you're as the same way that you transform the materials, you're talking about transformation of society, and also maybe of people, you know, of inside a human, that transformation. It's a little bit of a psychological thing, and then a social as well, all kind of implied by, you know, material, structure, form, you know, the formal elements.
Yeah, and because it's clothing, I'm talking about people.
Right,
In the
right,
body. Yeah,
right. On the body,
yeah,
implicit, the body implicit in the use of the clothing.
for sure.
Yep, yeah. And then your process, like how you just have different, you do cutting, you cut pieces and things out. You rolled those little ones there, the process of just rolling. What, sometimes you hang things, you know, from the ceiling. What other processes do you sew, you know?
So
Yeah. You sew, you know, you have a number of little pieces in your current show. They're little fabric collages, denim collages.
yeah, and those are from the scraps, like the leftovers. In some ways, they feel like little flags. I feel like they've also been referred to as, you know, there's a connection with the Geesben quilts as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think kind of as my own like personal history with collage, they feel like more fabric collages
Mm-hmm.
to me.
Mm-hmm.
I do have, like, I've been wrapping too, and this is actually something from grad school, and
Oh, right.
kind of reminiscent or similar to what's in the show. And I think there's a structure in my cutting, like where I started. This is actually a ball, or was a pair of jeans, and I started with the fly and cut it into a strip. And so it was like a single strip of material.
So you took one pair of jeans and made a single strip material out of it.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. How did you do that? It's like a puzzle, like an
right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of weird. I kind of feel like who would do that, but, and why, but, and then there ends up becoming something about the line that's really interesting to me. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of, I think maybe online there's, people are making yarn, t-shirt yarn. So there's a special way of cutting up the t-shirt.
Right, I've seen that.
Although the thing with that usually is that people like just cut out the midsection. And then the rest of it is like, well, what do you do with that? And you can't recycle this material. I mean, you have to, I mean,
you kind of cut it like this, kind of, or
yeah, but
back and around.
Oh, right, for sure. Like for this has a like I am cutting, you know,
to the corner.
To the corner.
Yeah.
There was something about, like, when I learned when I was a kid about the Indians and the buffaloes, and using the entire buffalo, and I just felt like that was important, of
sure, it's very
not
important.
wasting anything.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. So, what do you think about craft? Like, is craft important to you, and how so, if it is?
I feel like I don't know. Is craft?
It's kind of an issue, you know, like between high art and then craft, you know.
Right.
And
I think
Um,
also there's this thing with design and art too. It's like, oh,
mhm.
that's design, and design is not as good as art.
Uh-huh.
And I just, I think that was something that I felt like uncomfortable with in my own development as being a designer first and then
Hmm.
an artist second in a way.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm not really sure about if I have like strong opinions about craft and art
Hmm.
and even design. And I just kind of feel like after kind of like in a way having worked with um, people with Alzheimer's and people who are drawing, and
Hmm.
they have these like really wonderful drawings, and they may not appreciate that. And I'm just gonna like focus on appreciating what I do, you know, because
Exactly.
I can't really do anything else.
I
Um,
was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say that because when I see your work, I think, well, craft is one of those, art words, but you're really focused on making, and how a person's personality comes out in the making is what's important. Not this is good and this is not so good, and this person can't draw and this person can't, it's like, how does their personality and what they know come out in the making, and that's what yours is like. It's, you don't privilege any kind of, you know I don't know, process or way of making something. It isn't all shiny and fancy. It's just, this is me. It's natural. It's what naturally occurs. So just, we're rolling these things, we're cutting these things, it's my eye and my hand and my body, and it all comes together in a way that's me, and what I know about the world. And everybody, and like you said, everybody does that, and it's so fascinating to see the finished piece by anyone.
it's
It's
true.
like, that's that person. I mean, some people are very show offy, like artists, they show off how great they are. But then, so I know that a lot of artists have that eye for the natural, and they even are pissed that they can't do it, like, so that somebody who's not even an artist is a natural, and
Right,
has
right.
that ability to just go there and do it. And, that's, as artists, we're always like, wow, look at that, look at that person, how great, like Marlon Mullen, from Naiad. I mean,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
every artist I know wants to be Marlon Mullen, I mean, it wants to do something that's just that real and that, natural, and just evocative. And there's so much to his work, and it's just so unique. But I think you have that too, that, you're not so much interested in the, you're interested in that natural expression, that how you do it. You're interested in Leah.
Yeah.
Leah in the world, not just you, but, Leah in the world.
Right, right,
Okay,
right.
so let's talk about your show, Above and Below. So this show, although you do many things in different shows, and this show is all denim jeans material, and you've done different things with different sculpture. And so just tell us a little bit about the show.
Yeah. So actually, all of this material comes from a piece that I did in grad school in 2016. And this piece was a denim cube that hung in the air, that was my width and my what do you call it, my wingspan actually, and my height. And you could walk underneath it, and if you were taller than me, your head would go into the material hanging down. And I wrapped up all these strips of material, and they were rolled up in my garage since 2016, and I had no plan for them, and I think I would just save them forever. And then COVID happened, and I have a friend that a year ago said, "Oh, we want to have a studio together," or I told her actually that I wanted to be in her studio, and I thought, oh, I'm going to take all this material out from under this table and I'm going to bring it to the studio, and it was amazing. Like all this work in the exhibit I did in probably about 7 weeks. And
Right.
which is, it feels like such a little amount of time. Like I always think, oh, I don't have enough time, but it's not true. I, I started cutting seams out of these strips of all this material that I had. And I had no idea. I mean, there was something about the pure pleasure of cutting the seams out. And I think probably I'm interested in, as a designer, like the difference of the seams, the different material that's used. And I just started collecting them in a pile and kind of like putting my hands through them and enjoying the pile.
Mm.
And I don't think, if I didn't have a show, I think they kind of would have just been a pile. So the show was perfect as a way of actually finishing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And these strips, these seams, so the seam is like it's in fabric, it's something that holds the material or makes it so when you put it on your body, the material stays together, like
Mm-hmm.
a pair of pants. But then when you cut out the seams, you're kind of destroying that, you're making it flat.
Right.
So that's part of my own my destruction, but this pleasure and destruction, and I think it's really meditative.
Right.
To build this pile, and it was kind of like I couldn't believe that I had, it just kept accumulating, and I was trying to figure out how to display it.
Well, so it's a process of transformation. You decided to repurpose, you had this material. You came to the realization that you should repurpose it. You cut it apart and you reformed it into a new form. You transformed it, and now it's a new thing. It's like a big pile of spaghetti or, worms. But it's got this lush beauty of all these lines. It's kind of unformed, but formed, it's a loose form. And it has just it's like a letting go, which might relate to, being under COVID, having to let go to that, and just get along, without being in charge of everything.
I love
life
that.
Or
it's
anything.
True.
Yeah. So it has, but there's a great pleasure in it. In that, it gives you that feeling of just letting go. Here's a big pile of seams, that used to hold everything together, and now it's all unraveled, just like that, just like,
Yeah.
just like our future, But who knows what else, you could, God, you could take that pile and you could like soak it in water and change it into something else. Or you could, there's a lot of things you could do with it. You sew it all back together again. You could,
right.
you can transform it again and again. And I think that, I thought that was an interesting thing about COVID, which is it just kind of shows you, things aren't the way you think things are going to be, maybe not. And you can do that yourself. You can rearrange your life if you want to, just like COVID rearranged our lives. Maybe we didn't want it, but you can do that too. You don't have to just, keep going along with everything as is. So, it gives you the potential, there's potentiality. And you say that too, even in your materials, you say it opens the potentiality of remaking the self. In a psychological way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, dude, yeah, tell me some more about some of the other pieces in the show.
The balled up is these balls. Well, let's see, let me go back to the seams. It's interesting about process and kind of like I had no idea of where that was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think kind of being with that uncertainty and then trying to figure out how to display it and trying to create a foundation for it was quite a process. And I was talking with my studio mate about it, trying to figure out, you know, what I would put it on, if I would have someone, you know, build a pedestal, or if I would, you know, what was the foundation going to be. And I went to the depot, and then I didn't make a decision until like the idea of placing it on the sewing machine came to mind when I was in the bathtub. So this idea
Of course. Where else? In the shower, the bathtub, or driving your car. I swear to God, that's where all the best ideas come from.
is true.
So true.
And
So
it goes back to what you're saying about the letting go. And I think we have to let go in order to let those ideas come.
uh-huh.
And the importance of that. And
So then so all of a sudden you decided on the sewing machine to put it on, place it on, and that brings in the whole idea of the labor of making clothes, and who makes clothes and how, and, you know, as you said before, the labor of picking the cotton and, you know, making of the materials. It's all kind of, that sort of brings it out a little bit more, you know, the sewing machine.
yeah, and as a metaphor for repair, or a symbol of repair. And when our clothes are made by hand, like a single person is making them, or maybe a part of them. And there's, with all these different seams, there's the idea of community as well. And I know when our clothes they're very inexpensive to purchase, and so I think we're less likely to repair them ourselves. So I think we don't value it, but I think that idea of repair is really important, that culturally we need to repair.
That's exactly what I was thinking in my head. We need some repair. Those exact words.
Yeah.
We need some repair. Well, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, then I could tell you a little bit about the balled up piece. Well, so balled up means actually to literally make something into a ball. And then also it means confused and frustrated. And so it kind of feels like connected to the space that we're in the world now. And I was thinking about, it's like all these balls stacked on top of each other without anything holding them together except for gravity, or the weight of each other. I'm thinking about capitalism and precarity, and having a job that's very precarious, and
yeah. So these structural ways of structuring something are very, the ones you use are very loose and kind of unstructured, so they're precarious. And that relates to social precarity and personal, you know, psychological precarity.
Yeah.
So you've been so this show is in real life at Mercury 20 Gallery, and it's there Friday and Saturday from 12 to 6 until September 5th, and it's been there for a while. You've been there and people have come in. How have people responded, and what would you like people to take away from the show, and what have you felt that people have taken away from the show in their response?
You have such good questions. um, I really enjoy sharing it with people, sharing the work. And I think just even talking and mentioning the part about the history of jeans and cotton and indigo and slavery, I think that is actually an important part, and that people do take away when I mention it. Maybe they didn't know that before, or maybe they weren't thinking about that before. And this idea about, focusing on racial justice, right? What has been, racial injustice, and wanting racial justice. So part of what I have been doing is I am contributing a portion of my sales to different organizations within the community that are, that are helping Black lives. And I think I'm trying to think about like what people are taking away. I'm getting good feedback from people, and I think it's been a joy to be able to share the work. And
that's good. That's great. Yeah. Well, I think I always like it in abstract work and sculptural and conceptual work. People are not really, it's a lot of people will come into a gallery and they're not really used to looking at that kind of work or interpreting it or thinking about it or looking into it, thinking about what they see. So sometimes it only takes the slightest, sometimes just little prompt to people, and they're like, oh, yeah, I get it, so it's not that hard. It's just that they're not used to it. They're just not used to interpreting art. So I love it when, artists can talk to people and just give them a little way into the work, and then they understand what it means. It's great.
Yeah.
I wish it's not hard. People always get it. I've talked to so many people, just people wandering off the street, and they get it. It's
yeah.
And they like it. Most people like art once they get the chance to look at it. So that's great. So yeah, so your show, and I think is is there anything else you want to say about your show that is comes to mind?
I could talk a little bit about the title.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to.
It's Above and Below, and I mean initially I titled it as I was thinking about tops and bottoms of like clothing, because I was going to include sweaters and pants. And I ultimately didn't do that. And I was also thinking about like kind of what is metaphorically, what is below. I have another piece that's kind of like the ocean. A lot of blues that I've been working with.
Yeah, this show is all blue.
Yeah.
It's beautiful that, using the one color.
Yeah, it makes it really, there's a consistency that's really nice.
Yeah.
Something about, I think the space, like I'm interested in how does the work in the space? So how does the viewer, like look up or look below, kind of
right.
what are they finding? So kind of how does the work actually live in the space and the environment.
Right. It's good. And then you have some fun titles, like you said, Balled Up. And what's the one, you say one of your pieces is two very long lines of cut out flies from the fly part of the jeans. What's that one called?
So eye level is the top one, and then the bottom one is eye level of an average 6-year-old boy. So, and there's a funny story that from Mike Birbiglia, who I have a video and you can listen to it there.
About the eye view of a 6-year-old boy.
The average eye level, yeah. Someone actually came in and she was saying, she talked about flies on the wall, and I was like, oh, I love that title too. I thought that was great.
Flies on the wall, that's exactly what it is. All right, well, thank you so much, Leah, for talking to me. I think we got a real sense of what you do, who you are and what you do. And hopefully people will be able to see the work in real life. And if not, it's on the Mercury 20 website and on the Mercury 20 store. There's some beautiful little inexpensive, affordable art pieces by Leah. So it's Mercury 20 spelled out TWENTY.com. And thank you, Leah.
Kathy, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to be around you. A real pleasure. Okay.
I enjoyed
it.
Thank you.
How about that?